might be the last car over the line when the checker flag comes out, because I look at the times, 1:23. Oh, that's going to be so close by the time he gets over the line, because he backed out by 2 seconds. So De Battista is going to be the final driver out there to keep in mind. Ryan Carabot by 100th over his own teammate and second in the championship, Adrian Manduca. Muscat in 4th, Kassar 5th, Denzel Agius at 1.2 back there in 6th position. George Parge in 7th place overall currently. He's down in the pit, so won't improve, but there is still about 14 cars out there who could find times, and there's Ryan Carabot out there trying to find that lap time. This is the final attempt for him.
Yes, this is hardest now to put a bit of a gap between him and Manduca, because Manduca is just breathing down his neck. He wants to take 2 poles in a row, does the Ford Mustang. He will be there with 30 seconds to go. He's going to be at his limit. Carabot will be as well, but don't discredit De Battista. He will be putting a little bit of pressure now on the likes of Manduca. He did it in the race. Can he do it in qualifying?
Well, Aaron De Battista knows that he'd like to break up that Averso front row if at all possible. Now, this is going to be where we say, is it going to be a one more lap, or is this it from Aaron De Battista? Very close, coming out of the Jim Clark curve. Now over towards the line. Checker flag falls on top of him as he crosses the line. Does not improve on time to a 23.6, so it's going to be stuck there. So it'll be up to the likes of Sean Kassar and Sheldon Muscat to gain improvements there. And there, McLaren and Aston Martins respectively. Kassar runs wide, going through Westfield Bend, attacking up the hill. Muscat's in the pits, so can't improve. Carabot doesn't improve either, but Adrian Manduca still has a chance of finding 1/100th of a second, one tiny morsel of time, one blink of the eye to try and gain that time that's needed. Kassar now charging through the final corner, looking to improve on his lap time of a high 1:23 and heading over towards the line. Kassar crosses it and finds a couple hundredths and thousandths, remains in 5th position, unable to make much inroad or progress with that qualifying effort, but 5th is still respectable out there with effort. But what about Adrian Manduca, who makes his way towards the line? Is it enough to dethrone his teammate? No. As he crosses the line at 23.6, he'd have wished for a better lap time than that, but that will pretty much say no more in terms of qualifying effort. Ryan Carabot has the pole position, James, and has it by the barest of margins.
Advantage Ford Mustang again then, so clearly the car is just looking so prominent at the moment in ACC, and that is definitely an advantage potentially to the likes of the front, but nonetheless it's all about making sure that you actually have the pace to get up there. The pair of them have done it. The next question is, though, is the likes of that Audi. Will he continue to keep that pressure in the race? And then maybe a good strategy call, it's not all the Ford Mustang's way.
No, it very much isn't. So when you look at the likes of Aaron De Battista, you look at Sheldon Muscat and what they need to do in this championship to get themselves back up to the top, it now becomes a question of where do you find it and how do you do it? We'll take this moment here with the MOZA Racing Malta GT Cup to step aside for just one moment. When we come back, we're in race mode and we'll see how 45 minutes changes the early to mid part of this season.
This is the iconic oven-baked cheesy crick snack you've always loved. And this, it's Cricks too. Can you spot the difference? No? That's because there isn't one. Cricks still has the same irresistible crunchy goodness, wrapped in a stylish new packet. Same delicious flavour, brand new look. So snack lovers, get ready to spot Cricks in the snack aisle. Cricks, same iconic taste, new stylish pack. Now in sharing pack size.
So qualifying in the books, Project Averso 1, 2, 6 and 7. It is a triple layer filling of VMD Intercomp Sim Sport then as we get ourselves set for 45 minutes worth of racing action. They are lined up on the grid, but it will be a rolling start for today's action as they will take that charge around the lap, building up any tyre temperature and brake temperature that they possibly can, and giving themselves the opportunity then to say that over 45 minutes with one pit stop required, that being up on the top step of the podium takes a lot of skill around Brands Hatch to go and manage. James, the key here to this race, I think, is going to be how you manufacture an overtake. Passing is always at a premium at a circuit like this, and one of the keys you're going to be seeing is where you make a pass and how you make a pass. It's one of these places where the straights are 100 metres too short everywhere.
Yeah, the drivers are just going to be getting themselves ready then for the formation lap prior to the rolling start. But yeah, you're right. It's a very, very premium opportunity to get an overtake around here. So Druids is probably going to be sort of the critical step, perhaps going through through lap one rather. But then it's all going to be that side-by-side action through Pilgrims all the way through Dingledell. So I'm looking forward to seeing how they generate the opportunities in this particular race. And of course, strategy is going to be a critical one.
Couple cars starting then from pit lane, which includes Quattromani and Muscat out there. So the two Ferraris will put themselves down then on pit lane, and they will have to launch when the rest of the field flies on past them at the start of this race. So some drivers choose to do that to avoid the lap one shenanigans, but I look at corners like Paddock Hill Bend, and there's truly nothing like it in the world of motorsport. A corner with that much of a drop going down through, carried at that much speed. That is a corner that separates the drivers who are fully down on the throttle compared to those who are having to wait. Jens Schmeek also going to be starting from the pits then in the McLaren.
Yeah, it's a critical thing, is it's the difference between one, whether they can be brave enough to go for it and do a great lap versus those who might just do a good lap. And the difference is between a good lap and a great lap is potentially a world championship. That's the critical. And it's a shame as well, by the way, just a side note about Quattromani as well, of course, after actually a decent race from the Ferrari man last time out. It didn't have the best qualifying, but managed to turn out points. Can he at least benefit again from the pit start and potentially get points again, I wonder?
Well, that's going to be very interesting to keep in mind as we focus with George Parge here in the number 7 car, in position number 7, piloting the leading Ferrari in this field. That Ferrari is more known for being better through the high-speed corners. It's a little bit chop and change through the opening sector of the lap. So that Ferrari's got a bit of work to do to try and run on forward through, but now you start looking around at who can do what, who is going to be able to say that they're on top, and you can already see a lot of hefty gaps being formed up here as they will now coalesce together, having to go at pit lane speed as they will pass the medical center, which is on the left-hand side, as they rejoin the circuit back on here and get themselves ready for racing action through that final corner of the Jim Clark curve, which leads them on to the very long and all-important Indy circuit, the Brabham Straight, and this banked run to the start. Ryan Carabot and Adrian Manduka, two Project Verso Mustangs, looking to gallivant away from everybody else. Lights then ready here at Brands Hatch, and let's get ourselves going. 45 minutes starts now, and we are away, and immediately Aaron De Battista gets super aggressive going through the opening corner. Carabot gets what he wants, but look at a drive by De Battista down the hill off of the exit, absolutely sniping it away from Adrian Manduka, and Muscat now dives down the inside of Druids. Look at Manduka drop from second, looking for first, down to fifth in two corners.
Yeah, critical. That is so critical from the Ford. He needed to find at least a little bit more of a better start than that one, but now he falls down the standings of the timing tower, just resetting itself. Keep an eye out then on the front runners, and keep an eye out on De Battista. This is going to be so good for the man now in the Audi, looking to try and chase down second and first place, but didn't get, though he had a good start, held up a little bit. Opportunity for Muscat was taken, and the Aston Martin now chasing down the other Ford Mustang.
And a spin on the opening lap then for Denzel Agius, which drops him all the way back to 15th position. So Denzel Agius, who had qualified the car in 6th place, having a big amount of work to do as well. But Sheldon Muscat is the mark of a champion when it comes to this series. He knows what Ryan Carabot's all about. He's seen him do it a million times before, and he's a sort of driver as Sheldon who warms up into a season, and the fact is he takes one of the bollards away over at the final corner. He knows he's got to stay in range of Ryan Carabot in front. Carabot, this is not his preferred sim of choice. He's a lot quicker on the F1 games than he is here in Assetto Corsa Competizione, but talent is permanent, and he's showing that by being at the front right now, up into Druids again.
Oh, look, he's so sharp as the third place man in the championship, second place overall in this race, and definitely keeping the pressure at the moment on Carabot, who's looking to just try and defend this one here, of course, try and invite De Battista in towards the middle field. Johan Borg getting into a little bit of a scrap in the BMW, sending it down the inside line then of Vela Dingley in the other BM, but decent effort indeed.
It looked like Gat there had spun around in the Lamborghini, so that's going to be big troubles there for the number 33 machine. Has dropped down wide, goes Vela Dingley, and again, Borg will jump on through and pick up the place, and now Chris Gat will sit on the back and say, you know what, four-car train, the recovering Denzel Agius is there as well, and look at how they trip over each other here, going through these little consecutive right-handers. You get three straight here, and Denzel Agius, he's going to look at this and go, I want none of it.
Yeah, it's definitely putting pressure at the moment on the two BMWs. There's a little bit of lagging happening as well for Vela Dingley at the moment. So I think there may be an opportunity maybe opening up here. Oh, a little bit of a collision there. And I think that might be just due to the lagging at the moment for that grey BMW at the moment. Who's just now, Gat is just finding a little bit of a rhythm now to try and remember, defend from the guy behind him as well.
Well, it's a case of attack or be attacked, and that's what Denzel Agius will look at. Prioritises the exit, gets the run then. David Vela Dingley will be okay for the moment at Paddock Hill Bend, but down the inside goes Denzel Agius. That will be plain sailing. Off the road goes Vela Dingley there through the Paddock Hill Bend gravel, and there goes two places then as the move is done. So nicely done by Denzel Agius, picking up those couple of places. But Sheldon Muscat's had a moment. He's dropped back now to third position here. He's gone off the road, and Aaron De Battista scampered on through Carabot. Now 2.4 seconds clear. And look behind, because there goes Manduka trying to get by Sean Kassar.
Oh, I've got to go around the outside if this is going to be a bit of an unorthodox move. If this one works, an absolute treat still. Side by side between the pair of them, but the move nicely done. That's a great move once again from Muscat. Looking like he wants to be the man that really wants to power the pressure on. Manduka looking so strong indeed now.
Yeah, and he pushes slightly wide going through the Sheens curve, and that might open opportunity back up. George Parge looking to apply some pressure here on Sean Kassar and make that a very, very tough opening for this race. You can see the one on the timing tower indicating one pit stop has to be used, and it has to be used in the pit window, which will open in 40 minutes time and is 35 minutes long. Johan Borg has been able to keep 10th place in play. Denzel Agius has now moved himself up into 9th, and he'll be looking to chase down Sahil in 8th position, and Jamie Smith then in 7th. But Sean Cassar for the moment back now into 5th and looking behind at 6th where George Parge waits.
Yes, keep an eye out then on the likes of George Parge, because I think the thing is that he's one of those people that really puts the pressure on later in the race, but is able to just keep up with the front runners, and wherever mistakes occur, the consistency of that Ferrari man will be the one that ends up prevailing. Keep an eye on him. Remember, 6th place overall in the championship, 6th place where it is now, perfect equilibrium for the Ferrari.
Yeah, he's got 1/6. He qualified the car 6th. He is 6th. But right now, there's nothing devilish about the way he's driving at this stage. Muscat keeping himself honest with his teammate De Battista. But this is an interesting scenario for De Battista at the moment. Aaron's got himself effectively 3 seconds chase down to Ryan Carabot. But because Ryan Carabot missed a round, Ryan Carabot's immediately 30 points behind. If you want to talk the last 4 rounds of the season, the difference between 1st and 2nd, you're looking at 6 points. That's 24 points that would be lost over the course of the season. He doesn't have to directly worry about what Ryan Carabot's doing up front. And it seems very weird to say, think of the championship at just round 2 of 5.
Yeah, of course, remember, got Konchek going off of the circuit as he now relegates himself down to 50th as Quattromani gets the overtake on him. But I tell you what, it is going to be the critical nature of it. One race or one bad race, entire championship in a completely different direction. So it is all about thinking about the championship with every passing lap in this one. Pit window now open and will remain open until 5 minutes of this race is available to them, and then they will close. So this is where now all the drivers are going to find the rhythm and get ready for their pit stops within the next 20 or so minutes.
I'd expect most drivers to go at that halfway stage, give themselves an even split as far as they go with tyres and with fuel, and the longer that they go, the longer that they fill the car up, of course, the more opportunities they'll have. Parge then sitting with Sean Cassar, and Adrian Manduka has walked away towards Sheldon Muscat more over the last lap and a half or so. Still 2 seconds to chase down on that, but has dropped Sean Cassar by 1.5 seconds and looking to do so. Out then of Stirling's Bend and running that way towards Clearways once again. Patience, I think, is going to be a very important factor here to how this race is going to be scored points-wise, because Sean Cassar's there. Oh, that's off the road. David Vella Dingley there going down through Westfield Bend. In fact, Dingley at Dingledell. That's a bit of a tongue twister.
Yeah, you've got Dingley at Dingledell going through Dingledell Corner, is not looking through, and then they're going through Stirling. So Vella Dingley is the driver that's struggling at the moment, potentially with internet connection, is the Night Racing BMW. He's going side by side at the moment through the final corner, then going down the top straight, but losing the position once again. I don't think he's comfortable out there at the moment, as Vella Dingley. If there are a few internet issues now out there for the man, he will end up suffering throughout the rest of this race, as everyone is just effectively racing through and around him.
Yeah, that was Bart Schuss who was through on the inside. So Bart getting that one done and getting progress up now to 13th out there in this race. Johan Borg, we go onto the back of here as we head towards turn number 4 of Surtees, waiting for the apex in the middle there with Chris Gatt just in front in the McLaren. Now, keep an eye out on lap traffic later on in this race, because look at how narrow this circuit is. You've got to try and make the room around if there's any battle out there on circuit that's going to come across lap traffic. Well, Donington was quite wide. Borg off the road, just about salvages it, but you're going to find out how difficult this circuit is to get through when cars are trying to struggle to get around. Muscat now jumps up to the rear of Aaron De Battista, and the two have got a question to make. Work together, think about the long game, or is it going to be amongst each other because Ryan Carabot's down the road?
That's the critical thing, isn't it? The question is for Muscat. He's got Manduka just behind him, but the thing is that this is where it's all going to be about the blistering pace, effectively, of those around them, and whether they can actually manage this one as well. They've got more battling here as we've got Pache slightly off the road, going through Bottom Bend and then down the bottom straight into South Bank. So this is where we've got to see drivers build their rhythm now, try and get the most out of the cars at this early stage ahead of the pit stops, as I said, probably in around about 15-ish minutes time.
There is still time for drivers to think about where do I want to be. If you're feeling like you're a bit bottled up like George Parge is for the moment, you could decide to make an early pit stop and try and do something a little unorthodox. Give yourself the clean air to go and attack, but it will depend on where everybody else is currently out there on circuit. Parge happy to follow at the moment, and Adrian Manduka, who does have the fastest lap of the race to his name, currently in 4th position and chasing here with the Mustang. The Aston Martin GT3 that you see there at the moment is absolutely trying to charge that advantage. They're very happy to sit on the back and try and find any sort of opportunity here with the Audi in front. And there's some lap traffic to deal with for the first time. That will be the Mustang then of Adrian that they are trying to get by. The 666 machine at the moment is not having a very inspired performance at the moment. Moves over to the left-hand side, allows Adrian Manduka through.
Yeah, Adrian's struggling at the moment out there. I don't know if he's got some kind of damage, but really not finding any comfort out there at the moment. Back in this little battle here towards the front, as he's just trying to keep up that pressure, is Muscat, on the likes of De Battista, who is just heading through this quick right-hander. And this is so critical, isn't it? Every mistake you make here, you lose all of the time down here through the next right-hander of Westfield is where it's going to be all that power through Dingledale, and that's where you got to be at your absolute best, because of course then as you go through this next right-hander of Dingledale corner, as we're just going to Quattromani, who's his own little battle as well.
And there's Quattromani out there in the Lightning McQueen Ferrari at the moment, those colours. Yep, number 95 is going to be on the side of the 444. That's going to make things very confusing for everyone as they go through. So the question will be, how does he find that pass here on Borg, as he will look against Johan going through the first of 3 fast right-handers there. So gets it done at Hawthorne's corner, and so deals with that. Westfield Ben, good run off the exit, down the hill and back up to the Sheen's curve. Slightly defensive there from Johan Borg, and that forces the mistake out there, and so suddenly bring it back down the inside. Bart Schurge trying to go through. Kachow into the side. There's contact.
Yeah, a little bit rusty for the Rusties driver through that corner. Not particularly good from Quattromani as he tries to put the pressure on Borg and ended up inviting Krish into this particular fight. But a little bit of a hit on the side. Just a reminder, no mistakes, please, because otherwise you will lose positions very quickly indeed as we follow Pache. And then now onto Muscat. He continues on his battle with De Battista. They're working with each other to close down on Karabot, who at the moment has found a bit of a gap now. 4 seconds separating him from the rest of the field.
Yeah, I don't think they're having much luck in closing this down, and I think they'll be looking behind rather than in front, and that's a move coming out then of Druids and confirming it at Graham Hill Bend to get the pass done. So wonderfully maintained, as that will be then Johan Borg back to 12th position and having to look behind now at Bart Schurge, who had a good run in the opening round of the season, and so is really having to fight today to get any sort of meaningful points out of this race. So Bart having maybe a little bit more of a troublesome start to this season. And yes, there goes Johan Borg running slightly wide. And if you keep giving more opportunities like that, you'll see more. And there's the pass as we expected. Sheldon Muscat moving through to second. Aaron De Battista, I would say predictably for 2 teammates, not fighting that one too hard.
Yeah, lost a couple of tenths, though, Karabot, on the lapping of that car, so that's allowed a little bit of a close down at the gap. It was about 3.7, but Johan Borg is really struggling at that particular corner, so that's, I think, the 3rd time I've seen him go wide at that corner. That's going to allow potentially for people in the midfield to close down that gap. Keep an eye out on the likes of Gigi Quattromani, who, of course, are in their own scrap. And Quattromani, by the way, great race so far, considering he started in the pits.
Yeah, already up to 11th position. We'll be looking at Chris Gatt for a top 10 from the pit lane, which I think would be a huge boom in the context of the championship for him. George Parge again, keeping himself close, looking at Sean Cassar there in 5th position, and has been staring at the back of the VMD Intercomp car for the last, I would say, 10 minutes or so, and will be eyeing this up, going, well, if I can't pass him the conventional method, I'm going to have to take the unconventional method, which is, well, I've got to go to the pits. But these drivers will also know that it is the fastest way possible to have your car as light as possible. They would have pre-filled the car going into a race like this, gone, right, I want to pit around this time, and any deviation from the pit strategy that you start with at the start of the race is extra weight in the car, and that will cost you a couple tenths of a second per lap. You have to change the strategy.
Blue flags then for Gats, so that allowed the likes of Pache and Cesar to get that move done as quickly as they possibly can to continue on in their scrap for 5th place. We are following, or we were following there, we're now on board with Manduka, who's just closing down the gap on the likes of De Batista. Started to find a little bit of a rhythm now. Now the fuel started to burn off and the tyres have sort of bedded in. The Mustang is starting to look a little bit more prominent, so it's a bit of a switch in fortunes. The Audi looked really sharp at the start of this race. Now the Ford started to kick in. It was actually vice versa at Donington, so this is where things are now starting to almost open up in the other directions for these drivers here. A little bit of a mixed bag, but that's all they're going to make for great racing as we now dip below half an hour to go.
Oh, this is more of a tyre burner, I'd say, than what Donington Park is, and maybe for Aaron De Batista, the constant, monotonous, I would say, attack of corner after corner after corner is not doing him very many favours out there in the car, maybe not as suited to action here. Page again remaining close with Sean Cassar, but this gap is one where they're pretty much falling into an island of their own at the moment. 4.5 seconds off of Adrian Manduka, who's looking for the podium, and a full 9 seconds, I believe it is, clear of James Smith. So there's certainly 10 seconds now. Huge case of these two drivers realizing 5th and 6th is probably what they're looking at, but Adrian Manduka, I think, is the story now, because top 2 in the championship are together as they now exit out of Surtees and look to make the run along Pilgrim's Drop. This is where I would say Aaron De Batista has got to get the elbows out defensive.
Yeah, the thing is, though, is that their next rival in Muscat is actually both in front of him. So he's in front of them both. So a mistake from De Batista could actually invite Manduka into a scrap. Is he going to put too much pressure, potentially, on his championship rival? Or are they going to work together? Because remember, of course, Muscat, 3rd place on 19 points behind the pair of them. They're going to work together if they don't want to give Muscat a potential opportunity as well. So that is going to be so critical now as they head down the straight.
It's Manduka who you'll have his eyes firmly pressed forward, more in comparison than what the likes of Aaron De Batista would. De Batista won't mind Sheldon Muscat in second. Adrian Manduka would, because he would drop behind him in the championship were they to stay as they are at the moment, 2nd and 4th. The comparison. Ryan Carabot playing a little bit of spoiler right now, but that gap has closed down slightly as Sheldon's been allowed some clean air, and he runs slightly wide through Druid's corner as well, just for a little bit of a boot to go with it. 2.8 seconds is the margin, and traffic is up on the horizon. I believe that's Konchek that they've got to get by, or actually that might be a case of the Lamborghini there of Gatters. In is Bart Schuss to the pit. So that's the first taker in the lane. Bart Schuss pits in the Beamer.
Yeah, potentially a little bit earlier than anticipated there from the Beamer, but still wanted to try and get the jump. Now you can see that green bar where the one was, confirming now he can go to the end of this race. Now the pit window, of course, is open now for the next 22 minutes, but a little bit earlier than anticipated. I think, as I said, that could be a critical one later down the line as we are now following Pache, George Pache rather, as he's just closing down on the likes of Cesar in that little scrap for P5 at the moment. Really good battle, actually, between the pair of them. No doubt Pache going to continue on with his battle throughout the season.
No, he's not.
As I say that, he spun the car, getting into the grass, hits the rear, could be damage to the back diffuser.
I think you owe an apology there. That is as cursed to the commentator as it gets, but ultimately for George Page, a case of grabbing the grass too aggressively, and on cue, in comes the VMD Intercomp drivers. So in comes the likes of Muscat and De Batista. Cassar stays out, so there's a clear strategy in play from these drivers pitting early.
Oh, sorry, George. Such an unfortunate set of events, that one, isn't it? Onto the grass a little bit then, as well as George, as he's just trying to find every bit of pace that he can, but of course he might have got damage to the back diffuser. Muscat, of course, remember, these guys have also got to serve a mandatory amount of time in the pit lane as well. That's got to be considered in their strategy, so they'll continue to fall down. Of course, the rest of the standings, they may end up actually in a little bit of a scrap with people who haven't pitted yet. That could pose a bit of a critical nature as well in their battle with the likes of Manduka, of course, has stayed out one lap later.
Yep, so with Manduka out later, Karabot out later, we saw that it was an earlier pit stop from VMD Intercomp over at Donington, which gave them the track position, that gave them the margin to go and play with in the later stages. Muscat and De Battista done with their stops. They'll be out around Quattromani, and Muscat is come out just behind Quattromani out there. So that'll be their first car they've got to get by. But the question will be, how easily will they be able to get these overtakes around a circuit which is notoriously difficult for overtaking? It's a circuit that has done endurance level racing here in GT3 vehicles, the likes of which of Blancpain has been here, so that's the European Championships. You keep an eye on now, which is the GT World Challenge, which comes along here. You look around, of course, British GT comes here. This is a very tough circuit. It teaches you all you need to know about being quick at racetracks, as in comes Sean Cassar.
Yeah, Sean Cassar now in as well. Jamie Smith now up to 4th place. Maduka staying out another lap in this one here. Is he doing exactly the same as what the likes of De Battista did in the last race here? And has he learned his lesson by doing exactly the same thing and giving him a taste of his own medicine? I wonder, after just one race, that could pose as a bit of a critical one for the likes of Manduka. But we're on board following at the moment. Ryan Cabot not really getting much from him at the moment because he's just managed his own race pace, doing a decent job actually in the Project Aversio Ford.
Yeah, it's going to be a case of can you crack the case, and I think that if these drivers can crack the case of Ryan Karabot, then we might be in a very strong position to see that this is a championship that will have to go all the way to Silverstone. And Cassar gets a 30-second stop and go penalty, I'd assume, for speeding on the exit.
Oh, that's critical. That's critical for Cassar. Did not need to have a 30-second penalty slapped on him with the Intercomp. McLaren now going to have to really race now to try and damage limitate now, because this race pretty much done for him. So it's going to be a case of how much time he can save for the rest of the next 23 and a bit minutes.
Yeah, those 23 and a bit minutes are going to be the toughest out there they're going to deal with as George Page now decides to hit the lane. I'd say right time to do it. You know that your main rival's made a mistake. I don't think he'd even know that out there, that he's made a mistake, but he's just trying to recover to it. He's going to be out in relative no man's land, and he'll go, well, what happened, basically?
Oh, it's critical, isn't it? And these are the kind of things, these are the learnings that you've got to take very early on in these championships, knowing that, of course, you haven't got that many races to try and earn these points. It's a little bit wide coming out of the corner there for Quattromani, who's going to stay out, and he's actually battling now with the likes of with Muscat rather, who has pitted and chooses not to put too much pressure on him, knowing they're in completely different races. He's now up to 6th.
Yeah, that was an easy one for Sheldon Muscat, and a case of yellow helmet syndrome if ever you found one. Quattromani's in a completely different race to these two drivers he's in and around with, so don't expect much resilience here. And look at that, backed off of it, coming out of Druids and said, you know what, I'll give it up like I'm a lap car. You can have that pass and you can go on with your race. And so that's fair play to do it in that scenario. In comes Cassar now for his next pit stop to go and get his 30-second stop and go sorted and applied. But Johan Borg in 11th picks up that place. George Page out and away in 10th. And looking at that gap, he's probably about 13 seconds back now as George Page, which indicates to me that Muscat and De Battista have had a very good pit stop.
Yeah, very good pit stop. Quattromani, though, the clever one from the Rust-eze Ferrari, looking fairly sharp at the moment out there, knows that the race isn't with them, and he just wants to focus on his race. And remember, he started in the pit lane, so of course there are going to be people around him that he's now racing that have now made their pit stops, as we're following Agius at the moment in the Project Aversio McLaren, going through the left-hander and looking to try and keep up the pressure on the likes of Sahel. Again, remember, the top 5 all haven't made a pit stop just yet.
Yes, and now that gap, 1.3 seconds here for Denzel Agius, and it is coalescing quite nicely again, because you've got Sahil there, you've got Smith in the number 1 car. They are looking to close themselves together more and more and more. This is going to be a really difficult scenario for Smith and Sahil to try and keep back Denzel Agius, who knows very well Abdul Muez Sahil is going to be looking around. In comes your race leader, though. So Ryan Karabot's in, Adrian Manduka's in, the Mustangs come in together, and Jamie Smith might take a lap lead. It's a downhill pit entry, and you can see taking all the boxes, trying to hit the line and having to roll back slightly in the box was Ryan Carabot there as he settled down, but he's got that sorted. In comes James Smith, part of the over 40 club, as he dives in, which leaves just Sahale and Agius in front of Sheldon Muscat, but they're all in.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. Up front five have decided to meet themselves in the middle with exactly the same strategy. So, of course, Muscat is going to be leading this race. As we're on the board now with George Patchy, who's in his own battle at the moment, following, or in fact getting followed rather, by Gat, who's looking very sharp indeed, despite the fact, of course, he hasn't made his pit stop yet. A bit of a second wind potentially on the tyres as the fuel levels drop low for the McLaren, and a little bit of a tank slapper. Well held from Patchy, though. Around the outside he will go. Will Gat on this occasion? No, but he might have the traction out the corner.
He learnt just enough, just how to deal with that sort of spin that happened earlier on, and Gat now trying to recover back through. Muscat and De Battista are out of the pits then, have got themselves away. But for the moment, I look around as the likes of Gat now up to 7th, Parge into 6th. They've cleared Smith and Sahale and Agius as well. Muscat has returned in 2nd, sorry. Manduka in 3rd now has got the jump on De Battista, but crucially, De Battista is right behind him.
And of course, that 30-second penalty for Casau's 4th place in the standings as well means that they're not really going to have to worry too much about those behind them. Maybe James Smith in there as well. That could be something to consider later down the line, because he is looking very sharp at the moment in that number 1 Aston Martin. Quattromani as well in his own little battle. He still has to make his pit stop, of course, but really good race at the moment from Quattromani, starting again from the pit lane in the Rusty's Ferrari. Great stuff from him at the moment. 9th place in the standings as well, but he's got more pace than that one, that's for certain.
So here's an interesting scenario right now. If there is a case where Ryan Carabot goes out with the race lead here, and you've got Muscat, Manduka and De Battista, the way they are sat right now, Muscat and De Battista would be on 49 points, and Manduka for 2 seconds would be on 48 championship points. Such is the way that the points drop. It won't happen at the moment. 3.5 seconds to the good here is Ryan Carabot. He has driven a consummate race. That's some lap traffic there off on the right-hand side, almost in the barriers. And Sahale, Abdul Muez Sahale, has also got a 30-second stop and hold penalty.
Yeah, pretty clumsy from a couple of the drivers out there after the pit stops as well, the 30-second stop and hold, so he'll be in the pit lane shortly. Gat now also in. We've got Koscheck also in the BMW. In fact, he's just leaving at the moment as well, but I'm going to be keeping a very firm eye on the likes of Muscat, Manduka and De Battista. Of course, there is our front 3 in the championship, 2nd, 3rd and 4th respectively, behind Carabot, racing his own race, 3 seconds in front of everyone else. The question, though, is after the pit stops, does that gap for first place start to close down as we saw last time, or is Carabot going to run riot at the front? Well, it was 3.8, it's now 3.2. Clearly a few mistakes now happening from the front runner.
Well, I look at De Battista and I start seeing here a case of a driver who is attacking a little bit too hard out there on circuit. Is trying to have to drive this Audi on the ragged edge of grip. And it's a style that suits some and doesn't suit others. I think it does suit Aaron De Battista, but he's over-driving the car, trying to keep up with Adrian Manduka here. This might just have to be a case of hold your points between now and at the end of the season. Carabot sitting himself in that race lead, and yes, that gap is closing in. But remember, in fact, as that happens, that's going to be Gat who has to get out of the way, and that will compromise these two drivers. They had to be very alert to what the McLaren was doing there of Chris Gat, and so kept out of the way. Not really too much went wrong aside from that, and they're able to continue on. But this is what you're having to deal with here. The moment you feel like you're comfortable, there's going to be lap traffic that says, no, you're not.
Yeah, we saw that at Donington Park, didn't we, last time out, where a few people got in the way. There were a few collisions, actually, with lap cars between those at the front, and that could pose a serious threat to the likes of Carabot because, of course, he was losing a chunk of time. Gap now back up to 3.3, but this is where it's all going to be now. They're pretty serious now, where people are going to be wanting to be at their absolute cleanest here to make sure that they're not going to get impeded by the cars that will be getting the blue flags. But of course, they don't have to be adhered to. It's not like Formula Racing. You find the opportunity to give the overtake and give the position, you will do so. But there's no rule if you decide not to.
The annoying thing for Sheldon Muscat and his Aston Martin Vantage here is he can see the Ford Mustang of Ryan Carabot directly in front of him. It's just a whisper in the wind right there, that carrot on a stick that he's trying to chase on down. But every lap he can only get a tenth or he loses time, the tougher that this job is going to be. And he might just have to settle for second position overall, and that won't be ideal. Oh, speaking of which, James Smith, that is definitely not ideal. That's up the top of Dingledale through the Sheens curve.
I'll tell you what, that's really good for George Patcher, though, at the moment. That's exactly the kind of thing that he needs at the moment in his battle with the likes of James Smith and Cassar, both with a spin and a penalty to their name, respectively. De Battista is pushing. I agree with your analysis on this one. I do think he is pushing. He was very good at the start of the race, if you remember, when the tyres were fresh and the fuel was in. He's now trying to reap the benefit of that, but in doing so, he's overstretching the car, and that could be a serious problem towards the end of this race, where, of course, Manduka has been known to be faster towards the end of this one. Whoa, we're going to getting out of the way there. The Lamborghini have got going for a spin. That is going to be critical, though. He's now been caught out, Manduka, a little bit as a result, though, and now here comes the Audi.
Well, they can't overtake in the yellow flag zone. They've cleared that. Green flags there. Back again. You can tell what sort of zone it is, depending on whether the track's got some yellow flags out there or not. You can see it up on the top. But at least coming through the final corner, it's once more a case of Manduka's where he is, and Aaron De Battista would still hold the championship lead right now, going over towards the middle round of the championship at Alton Park. But crucially, your top three in the championship would all be split by 2 championship points should they go like that. De Battista from Manduka, from Muscat out there would be how it sits. We still wait on Quattromani to make a pit stop, which will promote George Page to the top 5. There is Abdul Muez Suhail, who is now back in 12th position after the 30-second stop and hold. A lap down and looking to try and get by Chris Gatt.
Keeping an eye out, though, on Manduka as he tries to close down, obviously work with the likes of De Battista. But the thing is, De Battista, I reckon, has probably got a maximum of 2 minutes before any kind of possibility of benefiting from getting that overtake done will be completely eaten up. So he needs to get this move done now and try and close down. A little mistake potentially from Manduka as they're going around this corner. De Battista needs to get this done now, otherwise Manduka's just going to close down the gap on Muscat, and that is the opportunity that he needs if he wants to take the lead in this championship.
Well, pressure does need to be applied here by Aaron De Battista, but the issue he might run into is, well, if he puts too much on Adrian Manduka, he'll start going quicker and quicker and he'll catch Sheldon Muscat. Not necessarily a bad thing, but in terms of the overall, it's a lot easier if you got 1v1 than you got 1v2 out there. They've got the car of Bart Schurz in 10th position that they've got to try and navigate around as their next overtaking opportunity there with the blue flags waving. They are advisory, they're not mandatory. You don't have to get out of the way here when the blue flags are shown, but crucially, there goes 1, there goes 2. Easy as you like. Missed apex through the middle of the corner, though. Adrian Manduka. This might be a chance here. Up over towards Surtees, as now to the outside looks Aaron De Battista. He won't get it, but he'll try and get a big exit coming out of here and over to the Pilgrim's Drop.
Yeah, here it comes then. He's going to have to tow down this straight as well, so he'll have the opportunity to get into the sort of wings and get into the sort of wing mirrors now of that Ford Mustang. Keep an eye out as they go through Hawthorns, then into the Portobello straight and then down to Westfield. Once again, keeping up the pressure is De Battista. This is going to be a do-or-die situation for him now. If anything like the first stint has got to go by, Manduka's going to start to get quicker and quicker and quicker as this bit goes on. And look through the corners, going through Westfield into the Dingledale, and then going through into Stirling's. So much quicker through the second sector, but De Battista's still got the pressure on him.
It's still there, but crucially enough, though, never ever really in a position to throw one down the inside. Good run, though, out of Jim Clark. And now here, as they go to Paddock Hill Bend once again, it's now going to be about where do you get that run. This is a thinking driver's circuit. You got to try and plan them out 2, 3, 4 in advance as the BMW in the middle of the corner sits there. That's going to be not too ideal. And on the exit again, having to pull over to the right-hand side. There's no real angle there for Aaron De Battista. And he has to go the long way around trying to find that sort. And ultimately, it's a case of Konchak who finds everything to be in this race. De Baptista's got to do the work again. Quattromani, one of the last cars in. Konchek, the only other driver, by the way, who has yet to make a stop.
Oh, that's so critical. I think De Bautista knows that his car is not going to be as fast potential as Manduka's on this second stint now. Is that going to pose a critical issue when we get closer to Muscat? I wonder this may just start to slowly Manduka with just over 10 minutes to go.
And it won't feel like long. It will be about 7 or 8 laps. You keep ticking them off, ticking them off, ticking them off, one at a time. You got to keep at it. And Adrian Manduka now has been given a small reprieve, and he'll try and build that up to a big reprieve. These drivers, by the way, 23 seconds clear of George Parge in 5th place right now. They've got a huge margin by comparison, so they could afford to fight if they did decide to go through with it. There's Quattromani out of the pits, now in 9th place behind Sean Cassar, who is back up to 8th and has done a great job of keeping this one honest, actually, for the mistake of having a 30-second stop and hold. Cassar still in 8th place, I think, is really impressive, but you're now starting to think about, well, if I can't get close enough, and that gap's now 1.3 seconds, are you now, as a driver, James, looking at, right, what do I do at Alton?
Oh, that's the thing, isn't it? Now at this part now of this race, I'm thinking De Bautista is probably thinking about that. He knows that the tyres aren't going to be quite there. He needs to think about Pache, who of course is always fast around here. He's a very consistent runner. Is Pache, of course, he's got his own little battle with the likes of James Smith and Sean Cassar. Both have ended up having some issues in this particular race, so he'll be very happy to swallow up a 4th place in this championship, because of course he'll put himself potentially in the battle to get onto that podium spot at the end of this championship. So this is where it's going to be now critical later down the line. Do you think about Alton, or do you keep going?
Well, battle for the wooden spoon is out there. It's Adrian versus Jamie Gatt out there at this stage. And no, it's not. There goes Jamie Gatt spinning out of Druidge too early on the power. Has to find reverse and just about able to keep that going. Missing Sean Cassar, who goes on through, but Jamie Gatt there finding out what makes that Lamborghini difficult. It's got the same engine underneath as the Audi, it has to be said, but it's a car with a lot of pomp, a lot of circumstance, and very, very difficult. You can see there the hood slightly popped up after that incident.
Yeah, I think he's going to have to just accept the wooden spoon tonight and just eat his soup with it and move on, because it's not been a particularly fabulous race for Jamie Gatt in this particular one, to say the least. Bartsch at the moment here in the 1.5 seconds back from Quattromani. Of course, remember, again, I'll keep saying it, he started in the pit lane, did Quattromani, and he's had a really good race once again in 9th place in this race. He's going to want to do more than 9th place, though, and he'll try and chase down Cassar, of course, remember, serving his 30-second stop and go earlier on in this one.
Car number 99 looking to go up to position number 9, and he's definitely not looking vulnerable. It's a case of call an ambulance, but not for me out there for Bartsch. He's looking to try and really ratchet up the pace late here. Give Quattromani something to think about. Quattromani's got much better tyres, and I'd say the situation favours the Rust-eze racing machine, which is up there in front. So Quattromani should be quicker, but Bartsch would have the tyres in their operating temperature. It does take 3 to 4 laps to get yourself the car optimal to go out there and charging, as we do see one car running to the pits, and I think that will be Jamie Gatt, and it is the Lamborghini jumping into the lane.
Yeah, that will be for repairs as well, as he just wraps up this particular race. He'll obviously get the points that are associated with 18th place, but as I said, a deserved wooden spoon for this one, to be honest with you. We've got someone off of the track there. I don't know if he's a lap car trying to keep out of the way, but a lot of debris from polystyrene now on the circuit as a result of that one. We're on board with Ryan Carr, but again, someone we don't really talk about a lot, because he's got a 5-second gap now to Muscat. And speaking of gaps, Gap was around about 1 second after that little excursion with the lapped car for De Bautista. It is now 2.5 to the likes of Manduka. That is now opportunity knocks for the Mustang, as we're just on board with Abdul Muez Sahel, as he's in his own little scrap at the moment with Gat getting the overtake done potentially into the next corner. Fabulous stuff around the outside, though he'll try and defend. Will Gat on this occasion, though? Move done and dusted. Good work from Sahel.
Yeah, Chris Gatt tried his best around the outside, ran into a bucket of understeer, though, at Surtees, and it often does happen, and there goes the pass that makes it happen. Now, Konchek's got an interesting scenario here. needs to come into the pits in the next minute and 20. Otherwise, there's a penalty there for Konchek. And I'm not too sure, but this might be close for the BMW between now and getting into the pits.
Yeah, no, you're right. It will be very close here, I think, as well. He's gonna, he might have maybe 4 or 5 seconds to spare, but it's critical here for Konchek. I'm not really sure on the strategy. It's not been a clean race, to be honest with you, from Konchek in this particular race. He'll fall down to the back as it stands with this particular one, I believe, anyway. But going through the right-hander, I think he'll just have enough time, but it will be a matter of seconds. He cannot make a mistake, otherwise a penalty is going to be slapped on his name.
Drive through for Jamie Gatt then, leaving the pits with damage, so that's certainly going to hurt the Lamborghini out there. But now for Konchek, it's going to have to be come down into the pits. Anything less than that, and it's trouble street, basically, in terms of this race. Goes over to the right, dives into the pits. He's just got to cross that line to go and get in, and the hood's starting to rattle a little bit there. Maybe the catch is loose then as he goes over and into the pits. He will get his service done, and crucially enough, as he finds himself in the box, there should not be a penalty for making that happen. There is Chris Gatt of Accelerate Racing. He's now in 12th position and trying to find a couple points as he goes very wide down there at Hawthorne's Bend. I think he was so wide he was trying to jump over to the Berkeley House Independent School, which is on the other side of the Falcombe Road.
Yeah, I mean, he was a little bit of a mistake, but he is in a bit of a no man's land at the moment, I believe. I know if unless that one is Borg, actually. I don't think it is. I think it was 18 seconds. It was, wasn't it? Yeah, it was. I think it's a lap car of Agius, actually. But, you know, nonetheless, a really, really good performance from the likes of Agius, actually. He's just trying to close down the gap now, get that overtake done on Gatt. But he's got an 11-second gap now to the likes of Pache. Of course, he's on his own little battle for the likes of De Batista. So that is going to be an interesting one towards the end of this race if the gap continues to close down. Gap around 15 seconds there, but De Batista now 13 seconds back from Manduka, apparently. That is critical for the Audi, and the championship leader really struggling in this second part of the stint. As you rightfully pointed out earlier on, Jake, he pushed too hard, and now he's paying the price.
Yeah, that would have been a spin somewhere, and we haven't caught it on screen. And ultimately, with an optimum track that you've got here, which is perfect for pumping out the quick laps, no wind to speak of, 27 degrees track temperature, and pretty nice cloudy, I would say mostly cloudy conditions out there. The sun out, but there is some cloud cover about. Aaron De Batista, with the mistake, will pretty much resign himself then to that 4th position, barring he doesn't spin over the final 3 laps of this race, led by Ryan Carabot, who right now, I think this is the easiest race that he's been looking for, and all he's had to deal with is make sure he still held the race lead coming out of turn number 1. He was able to manage that, and quite crucially as he came through, hasn't been challenged since.
Yeah, it's important, though. He's not complacent, though. This is the complacency, potentially, of the likes of Manduka, and the race ended up forcing an error as a result of the lapped cars, which, of course, saw De Batista taking the race win last time out at Donington. So all he needs to do now is just nurse the car home, make sure that he doesn't make any risks with any lapped cars. Don't lose too much time, because Muscat will be very happy to take any opportunities here, because, of course, the 3rd-place man in the championship will be happy to swallow up every point he can to put pressure on the likes of Manduka and De Batista, whom, of course, are both behind him.
Well, these drivers know each other very well. This is the creme de la creme of the top end of sim racing in Malta, and on the brakes, just easing his way past Konchek, who I think didn't get that that mandatory pit stop sorted, so that's going to add on to the end of the race, because I don't think service was finished in time, which is worth keeping in mind then with Konchek back out on track. Carabot then 2 laps away from winning this race, 5 seconds to the good over Sheldon Muscat, who he knows all too well is potentially the favourite out there. And Bart Schuss back there in 10th position has seen that gap open up. Quattromani's used the fresh tyres to his advantage. And right now here, James, it's a case of, well, walk away and very tough to go and gather that time back up. Quattromani's had a great race from the pits, but Denzel Agius as well, give him some credit after being down in 15th after the opening sector, qualified the car in 6th. He's got it back to 6th.
Yeah, great race as well. And obviously, remember, there's that little battle with George Pache trying to keep up with the likes of De Battista. I'm not sure what the gap is at the moment, but I think that might be done and dusted at the moment for the Ferrari. And you rightfully point out about Koscheck, by the way. I think the reason why is because the pit window is for the exit, not necessarily the entrance of the pit lane. So, of course, he finished his pit stop after the pit window was closed. So, as a result, it's not going to register. So, we'll leave that down to the stewards to decide if he's within the rules or not. But I have a gut feeling there may be a penalty heading the way of Koscheck, if not a disqualification. We will see, as we're just following at the moment of Carbot and looking actually in a bit of a situation with the likes of Muscat, because you believe that's not the car he's racing with, because he's actually a lap down. So as it stands, he's now just lapped second place. What a race.
Yeah, so that is Cliven Muscat then.
The other Muscat.
Yeah, trying to get around there in the Red Bull Miami Ferrari that goes for a half spin. Oh, good catch there, but was really needing to keep that pace up, because this was going to be a case of Karabot trying to find a way around here of Johan Borg, and it would have been an extra place there for Cliven Muscat to go and get that done. So navigates through the traffic, no dramas at all. There's just Adrian in front, which is the last car for Ryan Karabot to deal with in this race, and absolutely abandons the circuit, getting out of the way. Ryan Karabot scares them all off the road as he runs through at Westfield Bend, past the rally stages, down on the inside of the circuit, out of Dingle Dell, and where the back exit of West Kingstown puts up onto the rear. Now comes the final drive, through then at what is Stirling's Bend, over towards Clearways. It was never in doubt from the moment he took that pole position, the moment he took turn 2. He ran away from the rest of them, but simply consummate from Karabot picks up the win and starts his season off the way he wants to, knowing he's got to be flawless out there. Sheldon Muscat will take second, Adrian Manduka will have third, and it'll be a wait for Aaron De Battista in fourth position to cross the line. He holds the championship lead, but right now he's only got himself a 1 point margin to work with over Adrian Manduka. This season's on, heading to Alton.
Oh, you know what? For 3 races to go as well. Every point is going to matter. Good call on Muscat, by the way. I knew at some point I'd get them mixed up on this one. As we're following Pache now, coming across the line. What a good race it has been from the Ferrari. Once again, now up to 5th place for a fantastic performance as it managed to convert 6th to 5th. For the Ferrari as well. Adjius, great race from him as well to get that up to 6th, but then James Smith, no, regardless of the lock-up and the spin, still managed to get 7th place and a little bit of damage limitation potentially against the likes of George Patch, who's had a really, really good race indeed. He's just coming across the final set of corners now as he goes down the back straight then for James Smith. Again, as I said, defending what is a 5th place performance as Kassar is behind him. He'll close down the gap on him, if not overtake, but George Pache has had a fantastic race, and that could pose something, a bit of a situation, shall we say, in the midfield.
Yeah, and ultimately it's 130 seconds worth of penalty for Konjak for not getting that pit stop done in at the right place. But ultimately, a day-to-day where you look at the drivers at the very, very top. You look at the best of the best, and Ryan Karabot has started his season out the way that he has needed to. But the championship trio now get closer and closer, and we look forward to that in terms of the action. I would say it's not the worst time in the world in a championship, James, to not be on the podium, but if there was a race to do it, you'd rather do it earlier rather than later, because it gives you the chance to go and recover it back later on in the season.
Potentially. That's the critical thing, isn't it? What lessons are they going to be able to learn with the amount of availability of the laps and, of course, the points that are available? So if you're going to make mistakes, do it now and then learn from it.
Yeah, and of course, as well, it's worth noting that in a couple of weeks' time, we're going to be jumping ourselves over towards the Alton Park circuit. So we'll be going up north a little bit here, out from Kent, up towards Liverpool area as we head to Cheshire. This is going to be a circuit very similar to Brands Hatch in the sense that you are going to have to earn those overtakes, but you do have the long launch out of the Shell Oils hairpin to go all the way to Knickerbrook to try and find that pass. So I don't think it's impossible to pass at Alton Park, but you still have to really construct one. These national grade 3 style circuits are pretty much the bread and butter of hold everything together.
Yeah, Brands Hatch proved to be actually a decent race, to be fair, despite the fact that it was actually a bit of a challenge for overtaking. So Oulton's only going to offer a better performance. And of course, straight after that, we're down to Norfolk for Snetterton. And then no introductions needed for Silverstone to wrap up the season on the 5th of June. So midway season next week, and it is still very much all to play for, with only a micro amount of points needed to really be overtaking positions across the field. Fantastic. Brilliant.
It's absolutely wonderful, and you can catch that only with us here with Velocity Esports Racing. If you haven't had a chance to follow the MOZA Racing Malta GT Cup powered by Intercomp, or any of the other series that are out there here with us, do that wonderful YouTube thing of liking, of sharing, of subscribing, and making sure that all your friends know that there is amazing sim racing out there here with us. From James Otter and myself, Jake Sperry, this has been a Velocity Esports Racing production in collaboration with Gaming Malta, Hyundai, Intercom, Sunshine Snacks, Level Academy, JACAP, and GX Trust. The MOZA Racing Malta GT Cup, powered by Intercom, closes down in the championship to the thinnest of thin margins. It's a wafer-thin slice as we head to the mid-round of the championship, knowing that there is not much time for recuperation, not much time to lick your wounds for missing a podium. But crucially, everybody is still finding finishes. Everyone is being consistent. Ryan Carabot is the new great threat, which arises after his victory. But for Muscat, for Manduka, for Aaron De Battista, it's all square just about as we tackle Oulton Park in 7 days' time.
This is the iconic oven-baked cheesy crick snack you've always loved. And this, it's Cricks too. Can you spot the difference? No? That's because there isn't one. Cricks still has the same irresistible crunchy goodness, wrapped in a stylish new packet. Same delicious flavor, brand new look. So snack lovers, get ready to spot Cricks in the snack aisle. Cricks, same iconic taste, new stylish pack. Now in sharing pack size.